By the summer of 1945, the Allies had already defeated the Third Reich, but the war continued to rage in the Pacific. The defiant Japanese Empire refused to surrender, claiming they would fight to the very last man. But unbeknownst to the Japanese, the US was in the final stages of preparing a secret weapon, a device so destructive that they were confident it would end the brutal conflict in one earth-shattering blow. After hasty repairs following a ferocious Kamikaze attack, the Portland-class cruiser USS Indianapolis was chosen to undergo a top-secret mission. Soon, strange, highly concealed containers were loaded onto the ship. Not even the vessel's officers knew what was in the boxes, but the order to deliver them to Tinian Island had come directly from President Franklin D. Roosevelt. The goal had to be accomplished no matter the cost, and they could not divert under any circumstances. Without realizing it, Indianapolis and her crew were transporting the components of the Little Boy atomic bomb and half the U.S. supply of uranium. The fate of the world now rested aboard the ship. Early service. The ship that would eventually deliver the components of the atomic bomb that devastated Hiroshima was initially built between 1926 and 1930. She was the second in the Portland class of light cruisers designed to adhere to the recently signed Washington Naval Treaty. She was designed to be a fast and limber warship and was designated as a light cruiser due to her thin armor, which earned her the CL-35 hull classification. Still, shortly before she was launched, Indianapolis would be upgraded with 8-inch guns and reclassified as a heavy cruiser under the new London Naval Treaty. Besides her conventional armament, Indianapolis could carry 4 aircraft and launch them via 2 amidship aircraft catapults. Also, the 2 Portland-class warships were outfitted to serve as naval fleet flagships with space for a flag officer and his staff. The ship could be operated with a crew of 807, but the number would grow to 1,229 when functioning as a fleet flagship. After her shakedown cruise, Indianapolis served as a flagship for several U.S. Navy officials and hosted President Roosevelt on 3 different occasions. On her last major operation before the war, Indianapolis took Roosevelt on his good neighbor tour across South America, docking in Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay. As Japan unleashed its surprise attack on Pearl Harbor, Indianapolis would be spared because she had recently left the naval base to carry out training operations. Immediately after the attack, Indianapolis was integrated into the Navy's Task Force 12, which was tasked with finding and intercepting the Japanese carriers that had perpetrated the attack. However, Indianapolis and the rest of the task force could not locate the enemy carriers, but the ship would become an essential asset for the U.S. Pacific Fleet now that so many others had been damaged. War in the Pacific. USS Indianapolis was put into action immediately, participating in several U.S. campaigns in the Pacific. One such mission called for her to escort the Lexington aircraft carrier during U.S. operations in New Guinea. Then, in February, Lexington was targeted by a fleet of 18 Japanese aircraft, but Indianapolis and the carrier managed to shoot down 16. Later, she intercepted the 3,100 long-ton Japanese Akagane Maru, loaded with troops, munitions, and supplies. The cargo ship tried to flee, but was shelled mercilessly by Indianapolis. She then exploded and sank in mere minutes. After retiring at Mare Island, Indianapolis moved to Hawaii as the flagship of Vice Admiral Raymond A. Spruance, commanding the 5th Fleet. She continued to be a crucial asset for the U.S. Navy, hopping from island to island to push back the Japanese forces during 1944. Indianapolis then led an assault on the Western Carolines and supported the Mariana Islands landing during the Marianas Turkey Shoot, where U.S. forces shot down 426 Japanese aircraft while only losing 29 warplanes. As the year ended, Indianapolis returned home to California to undergo an upgrade. Refitted for battle, she then joined Vice Admiral Mark A. Mitcher's Fast Carrier Task Force in February, participating in the first attack on the Japanese home island since the Doolittle Raid, after which she supported the landings in Iwo Jima. However, on March 31st, while supporting the Allied attack on Okinawa, Indianapolis was targeted by several Japanese warplanes. A Nakajima Ki-43 Oscar fighter managed to slip by the fleet defenses and dove directly into the cruiser's deck in what seemed to be a kamikaze attack. The ship's crew immediately opened fire, but the warplane was too close. Still, The counterattack managed to clip the fighter's wings, causing it to swerve off into the sea, but not before it dropped a bomb from 25 feet. The device pierced through the ship's deck and right into the crew's mess hall, then went down through the berthing compartment and the fuel tanks before crashing through the keel and exploding in the water below. The attack left 2 enormous holes that flooded several compartments below deck, taking the lives of 9 sailors. After emergency repairs on the spot, Indianapolis steamed for the Mare Island Naval Shipyard to be patched up and eventually sailed back to California for additional modifications. A secret mission. After a significant overhaul, Indianapolis was chosen to undertake a special mission of the utmost secrecy. Neither the crew nor their commander knew the exact nature of the operation, but the new orders came directly from President Roosevelt. Indianapolis was to carry a particular load of unspecified cargo to Tinian Island. They had to travel light and fast and could not divert from their course. In addition, the crew was ordered to relinquish all but the most essential supplies to keep the ship as limber as possible. When Lieutenant Commander Lewis L. Haynes received the radio message with the orders, he was stunned and even said, quote, "Under orders of the President himself, what the hell was the ship hauling?" 2 unidentified men who claimed to be artillery officers then boarded the ship with the crew. However, they seemed to know very little about the craft. To make things even more suspicious, the ship's departure was mysteriously delayed, with no cause given to the ship's officers. In reality, the 2 strange men were James Nolan and Robert Furman, members of the Manhattan Project, and they were waiting for confirmation that the first ever nuclear detonation test, known as the Trinity Test, had been successful. Minutes after the verification, Indianapolis set sail. USS Indianapolis was hauling the gun-tight mechanism for the Little Boy bomb and about half the U.S. supply of uranium. The cargo was to be delivered to the U.S. base at Tinian Island, where the atomic bomb would be assembled, loaded into the Enola Gay, and dropped over Hiroshima in just a few weeks. Indianapolis traveled swiftly and made the trip in record time, arriving on July 26th. The ship's crew was stunned by the number of high-ranking officers who supervised the mysterious cargo, while they were not allowed to disembark. The ship left as quickly as she had arrived, and most of the crew would never know what they had transported. The sinking. After leaving Tinian and dropping off the secret cargo, Indianapolis moved on to Guam, where she was ordered to rendezvous with other ships at Leyte Gulf in the Philippines. Captain Charles Butler McVeigh asked for an escort several times, as the ship was not fitted to detect enemy submarines. Still, he was denied and instructed to travel in a zigzag trajectory to throw possible submarines off. Moreover, Allied Command had received several reports of enemy submarine activity in the region and had intercepted and decoded radio messages from the Japanese submersibles. Still, they failed to relay that information to McVeigh, as they did not want to risk the Japanese finding out that the U.S. had cracked their codes. Just 4 days after dropping off the components of the atomic bomb, Indianapolis was intercepted by submarine I-58 while traveling completely unescorted. 2 torpedoes struck the ship, causing chain detonations and almost tearing her in half. The damage was overwhelming, and the crew did not have time to react. In less than 12 minutes, the cruiser was swallowed by the sea as the crew fought to stay alive. Many sailors could not escape from the sinking waters. Others were struck by the propeller as they tried to swim to safety, and many others perished in the numerous explosions and fires. Only around 900 men made it into the water, but their fight for survival was far from over. Rescue. For the next 4 days, the survivors suffered one of the most horrendous ordeals in U.S. naval history as they waited to be rescued. Stranded in the middle of the sea, many men lost their lives to dehydration, starvation, salt poisoning, or drowning. As if that weren't enough, the event would become known as the worst shark attack in recorded history. Out of the 900 sailors that survived the initial attack, only 317 would live to tell the tale. Some of them would not have made it if it wasn't for Lieutenant R. Adrian Marks, who decided to disobey orders and water-landed his plane to deliver supplies. For years, military analysts have questioned why the rescue took so long. Official records showed the Allied command did not receive a distress signal, but the survivors and U.S. ships in the region have thus far proved that the signal was sent. Most current specialists believe the U.S. failed to act due to fear that the secretive mission could be revealed. If true, the The crew paid a steep price for their furtive mission to deliver the components of the atomic bomb that ended the war. Thank you for watching our video. If you enjoyed this story, click on your screen and check out another of our Dark Documentaries channels, where we delve into the most fascinating military events and the incredible technology that made them possible. We publish new content regularly, so stay tuned.